I want to talk about this Scot Peterson, though, Professor. Wow, we've never seen this before. You have this school resource officer who's essentially a police officer. He was armed. He's at the Parkland school, the Stormy Daniels school, when this mass, shooting takes place, and he doesn't go in. He hears the gunshots. He doesn't run in. He relocates to another part of the campus. He continues to hear gunshot, and he does not go in. Even when other officers arrive at the scene, Peterson does not go in. And now he is facing 11 charges, including 7 counts of felony child neglect. These are very serious charges that carry very serious jail time. Is this going to be the future of what happens to law enforcement agencies or agents when we have these mass shootings? And they, maybe it's fear. People are calling him a coward. If you remember, Donald Trump was incredibly hard on this former school resource officer. But do you think this is the way to go? Should we be charging these officers with felonies because they don't, rush into these schools where there's a shooter, literally picking off students?
So I really want to hear what you have to say about that very question, because it does raise some issues. So it's possible that this school resource officer was faced with a very difficult choice: stay outside, as he did, or go inside and potentially be killed. And I don't know how you square that circle. Everybody says, "Oh, I would run in and save those kids," but when you start
not everybody will, for sure.
when the bullets start flying, home, right? Yeah, I'm just wondering, just if that's really the case. I think that the felony charges strike me as an attempt to create some accountability somewhere. There's so much pain and anger in that community because there were all of these reports of late responding first responders, the school resource officer who didn't go in, the just sort of carnage in the building, the impact that it had on the community and the country at large. So, I'm not saying this guy is covered in glory, but I wonder if there's an extent to which he's being made a scapegoat for a much larger issue. The more we're talking about him and what he did or didn't do, we're not talking about the fact that there are a whole bunch of guns and a whole bunch of anger and a whole bunch of other problems in the society that we need to be addressing. Locking him up isn't going to fix any of that.
Yeah, I'm going to weigh in on this. I want to hear first, though, Katrina, what are your thoughts about this? Making it a crime and charging someone with a felony not someone. This is a school resource officer who has a duty, obviously, some duty. And the question becomes, what is that duty? But, just as at a visceral level, does this seem like the right thing to do to you?
To me, it doesn't seem like the right thing, Areva. I mean, you got to look at this man's circumstance. He's a 60-year-old retired Broward County Sheriff's deputy. He's probably pegged this job as his entryway to retirement. He did not think that he was going to wake up one day in the middle of a mass shooting. Now, of course, as an officer, you have a duty to act, but I'm not sure what the requirements are for school resource officers in the state of Florida, but I'm not sure how far they have to go. And I think we're, edging against the slippery slope if we start prosecuting these officers for not doing their job. This is also another diversion from the need for us to do gun reform. I mean, think about what happened in Nashville not too long ago here in Tennessee. We turned an assault on our children to an attack on the Black vote. And this is the same thing, another diversion. I think we need to look at how we hire these people, how we assign these people, and hold them accountable. Maybe he loses his job or loses his rights after that. But other than that, I don't think it should be a felony.
Yeah, I'm going to side with both of you. Legally, this just creates so many issues. What is that duty and when is that duty breached? And like you said, Professor, there is so much pain. And I know some of these families, they are angry. They were angry that the shooter didn't get the death penalty, that he just got life in prison without parole. So there was already, there's already those feelings and anger about, that the outcome of that case. And there's so much pain when you lose students, whether they're kindergartners, first graders, or high school students. It doesn't matter. Your kids go to school and everybody expects them to be safe in their schools. And parents have a right to believe that a school resource officer is there to protect their children. But as you say, Katrina, I don't think this retired sheriff's officer or anyone that goes into school policing goes into it thinking that they're going to have to run into a building with someone with an AR-15 that is, on the loose and just randomly shooting people. Now, one of the things that Peterson said was that he could not tell how many folks were shooting, where the gunshots were coming from, and that he was trying to, from a tactical standpoint, assess the situation. Unlikely that he had the kind of training that would have even allowed him to be effective even if he entered the school. So I think, rightfully so, parents wanted action. They wanted someone to do something to try to save their children. And as a parent, again, I would have the exact same sentiment. But as a lawyer, I do worry about creating another class of criminal conduct or another class of liability, criminal liability for a police officer or school resource officer in this case, because, is this going to extend to police officers? Police officers arrive at lots of crime scenes. What's going to be the standard now? Do they have an opportunity to assess that scene, wait for backup, or are they supposed to rush into buildings or rush into potentially dangerous situations? I think, we could be creating a massive problem. And then think about who's going to take these jobs. If you know that you could face not only, and if he had any money, which is doubtful that he does, but if he had any money, we know there'd be massive civil lawsuits. There are already civil lawsuits against the school, but he would have personal liability civilly. But then to think that you could be criminally prosecuted and spend 15 to, life in prison because you didn't act, I think that's not the solution. And I think like putting more gun detectors, metal detectors in the schools, arming the school teachers, everything in this country, rather than focusing on access to guns and dealing with our epidemic of guns. Now it's, let's make Scot Peterson the example. Let's, get a criminal conviction against him. But as you said, Professor Fauntroy, that won't solve anything. That won't deter the next mass shooter from going into a school and inflicting the kind of pain that happened in this school setting. So I think this is fool-headed by this prosecutor. I think he was overcharged, 11 charges, 7 felonies. These are really serious charges. And the reality is he could be found guilty because the jury pool in Florida, a lot of folks are still very angry, a lot of pain in that community around, these kids who were murdered. And some of the students who survived, who have now become big advocates, are also very much in favor of this prosecution. So we'll be watching this very closely. This trial is going to probably take a couple of weeks. We'll see what happens with it. But this is not how we solve mass shootings in schools, is by going after resource officers.